How's it going, guys? We had some spectacular rugby this weekend with the Rugby Championship. We had it all. We had both New Zealand and South Africa come through with big wins, but that New Zealand game was a lot closer than everybody was expecting. I want to break this weekend down. Please like, subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. And let's get into it. So first of all, I want to start off with the big game of the weekend, South Africa versus Argentina, and then we're going to work our way back into New Zealand, which that was an absolutely electric game, which really came down to the wire. But let's start off with South Africa. They ended up beating Argentina 67-30 with I can't even call it an amazing performance. It was out of this world. It really was out of this world. Argentina really kept us going like hard. They really kept us going hard for the first half, and there was so much back and forth. There was so much going on there. But once that second half kicked in, it was just game over. It was just game over. I mean, let's break this down here because there's a lot to go through here, right? So, before I continue, actually, I'm going to talk a lot about Sasha here because his name pops up a lot. So, if you guys do like Sasha, drop a like. The usual. The guy is bloody phenomenal. Whether it's the best performance has been put in by a number 10 in the green and gold, I wouldn't say so. Was this I think he was the best performer of the weekend, without a doubt. But best ever, Morne Steyn is still there for me. But that's just my preference. Let's break it down. So, Sasha with a penalty early on, setting the tone of the game, right? Really just trying to get points on the board. Carreras comes through with, penalties not long after, on the 9th minute and 14th minute, getting that lead. But South Africa were really trying to make the most out of every single thing that they could. Argentina were coming in hard, they were coming in strong. South Africa just wanted to keep those points there. And as you see, Sasha gets another penalty on the 19th minute. Carreras replies back on the 25th. And, it just kept going like this. And then things started to click, right? 30th minute, Malcolm Marx comes through with a try, 11-9. But then we end up getting Chocobaras coming through with quite possibly the weirdest try that I've seen in a very long time. Cheslin Colby comes through with a... It comes back, puts it in, he puts the ball down, and then he kicks it to Damian Willemse. Now, albeit that's probably a second reaction, that he just goes and does it, but he kicks it back out into play, and Chocobaras was hot to it, understood what it was, and ended up getting a try out of it. Now, in my previous video, I called Cheslin Colby a doers, and in my opinion, rightfully so. The guy was an idiot. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love Cheslin Colby, but that was an idiotic move to make. Obviously, nobody's perfect. People are going to make stupid decisions at points, but my word, that was ridiculous. And yeah, it is what it is. It was just something ridiculous to do, and they ended up getting a try out of it. And that try, what resulted out of it is they actually ended up going above us, and they actually went ahead on the scoreboard. And with Carreras converting it, they were actually leading 16-11. So if the South Africans weren't ready and weren't, ready for what they were about to do, this game could have gone a completely different way if Argentina were able to keep up that momentum. But Sasha had a different idea on this. He kind of said, you know what, I'm going to take the game into my own hands. Things need to be done, and that is exactly what happened. He ended up getting himself a try in the 37th minute, converted it himself. Marx gets himself a yellow just on the 40th minute, which now South Africa's thinking, what has happened? What's going to happen here? We going into the second half, one man down, and, we are just barely making the points. But what happens is just pure magic. Yes, Argentina get themselves a penalty try in the 40th minute. That ends up putting them 23-18 directly on the 40th minute. But South Africa had something else. Sasha had something else. They played to the whistle. They played with everything that they had, and Sasha worked just a little bit of magic. Ended up getting himself a try in the 43rd minute just to finish that half off strong as all hell and in front, coming through 25-23 at half time. And this is the kind of magic that we have been seeing from the Springboks. We are seeing the product of Tony Ball. Right, we are really starting to see how South Africa are changing, how they're evolving, they're adapting to new rugby, and they are playing some absolutely phenomenal rugby right now. Sasha has had a spectacular game, and it just gets better from there. It gets better from there. Coming in 25-23 at half time. My heart was still racing. I didn't know what to do. I was pacing everywhere. But my worries started to ease come the second half. Cheslin Colby goes and makes up for that blunder that he made on the 42nd minute, straight after the half time. And because of, guess who, Sasha, with his brilliance, ends up converting. Sasha says, you know what, you scored a try, I'm going to score one too. A couple minutes later, I think it was about 8 minutes later, Sasha says, you know what, I'm going to do this as well. Gets himself a try, converts it himself. Now, out of the North ends up bagging him a point, gets a little something just to give Argentina just that little bit of extra hope. That little extra, you know what, we could potentially do this if we come through well. But Morne van den Berg said, no, I got another idea. Ends up coming through with a try. And what was I saying about Morne when he ends up coming on? What was I saying about Morne? Morne, he's going to change the game. His kicking is far better than what Quibus is. Quibus is a completely different ballgame when it comes down to being a 9. He's a much more direct and a physical 9, where Morne, he's a little bit more technical. And we really started to see him grow into this game. And, he started to put on an absolute clinic. Because, things just blossomed from there. Sasha ends up converting that try. Thomas du Toit gets one on the 65th minute, a couple minutes after. Sasha again gets that try, and then Manny Liebach is like, you know what, everybody's having fun here. I want to have a bit of fun. 74th minute, he ends up getting himself a try, converted by Sasha. But then, du Toit, what is happening here? What is happening here? I only have one try. I need 2. Yeah, I need 2. Peter Steff says, you know what, I'm going to do this. And ends up getting himself a second try on the 79th minute, just before the game ends, just to kind of clear it out and say, you know what, it's a little bit of consolation. I'm just happy that I ended up getting myself another try, putting through an absolutely spectacular performance, finishing off 67-30. And, we take a look into the stats, right? 9 tries, 8 conversions, 126 carries, 11 line breaks. Yes, they did lose 14 turnovers and 3 turnovers won. But, we go here into the set plays. So I was always a little bit worried about the set plays. We've been lacking a lot when it came down to our lineouts, and lo and behold, 10 lineouts, 100% win ratio, 11 restarts received, 100% win ratio out of that. Now, yes, our scrums were below par, but prior to this, scrumming has never really been our problem. So I'll take that with a pinch of salt. But we look at the attacks here, right? So 128 passes, 126 carries, 269 post-contact meters with 11 line breaks, right? Compare that to Argentina. We are far, far superior. And this shows exactly what was done and how much we actually carried the ball. Because yes, we only had a couple more passes than Argentina, but our post-contact meters were like almost 100 meters more with an additional 10 passes. You look at our ball carries almost double theirs. So, that shows just how dominant we were and how, Quibus, he ends up, he really impacts the way we play. And then we have that back row who, they were scary throughout the entire game. They were really, really scary. But we had a pretty good game. I mean, look at our kicking. You look at our kicking game. You look at how well our kicking game, was, and how well we thrived under it. 40 kicks compared to Argentina's 27. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, right? But let's look at Sasha, right? From how he was playing, his ability to pick out a pass, his ability to find that little bit of space. I mean, we take a look here. Top two is South Africa. Both Jasper and Sasha with 13 carries apiece, right? Sasha, Cheslin, and Peter Steff breaking, commanding the top three in terms of line breaks, with Sasha having 3 line breaks himself. This is a number 10 we got to take into consideration. He's a number 10. This should, this isn't something that you normally tend to see. You really, really don't normally tend to see this. And from the way he played, from the way he moved, from the way he brought other players into the game, absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And then we break down and we go into New Zealand. This was a fantastic game. I was up at around 5:30 in the morning. Already had a couple of coffees in me by the time the game had started, and my word, it was worth every single moment. It really, really was worth every moment. 33-24, and New Zealand really managed to pull a rabbit out of their hat, because the second part of that second half was just so back and forth. Australia were really, really pushing for it. But it just kind of felt that every time that they were, Australia were making ground, the All Blacks just managed to find a way to get that crucial turnover. They just managed to find that little way just to slow down Australia. Ardie Savea pulling in with some amazing performances of late, and he did another one again yesterday. The guy was absolutely phenomenal, and he deserves to be captain. And I understand Scott Barrett, I believe he's out injured, and he is the reigning captain, so when he does play, he probably will end up getting that captaincy. But when he's not playing, that has to be Ardie Savea all day long, all day long. But ultimately, I mean, you take a look here and you think, yes, the All Blacks technically did lead the entire game, right? They were in front the majority of the game, but that doesn't actually show just how dangerous Australia were, and how dangerous Corey Toole, Harry Potter, and Max Jorgensen was. How dangerous Suali'i and Len Ikitau, the shift that they put in, the work rate that they put in. But then the same thing with Wallace Atiti, Ardie Savea, and Simon Parker. I am really, really loving Simon Parker right now. Like that, this guy is an absolute monster, and the depth that they have in terms of these forwards is ridiculous. Because yes, they had Holland at 4, Va'i at 5. They could have, we ended up seeing Tuipulotu and Tuipulotu come on, and then you look at all the different variations that they have when Scott Barrett's available, because Va'i can play that number 6 role quite easily and very well. Holland can play the 5, he can play the 4. Patrick Tuipulotu can play the 4, he can play the 5. Scott Barrett can play the 4. Simon Parker can play all around the back. Same thing with Wallace Atiti and Ardie Savea. So whatever they need, whoever they need, and then you have players, that are just, they have so much depth in terms of players, elite level players, but also in terms of quality per position and that versatility. They got so much versatility. Honestly, having Cam Roigard back though was a breath of fresh air. The guy was absolutely phenomenal. I was really happy that we did not have him play up against us when they played the Springboks. I think that really could have been a completely different game. We saw what he ended up putting up against Australia here. Yes, South Africa and Australia are two completely different ball games. They are two different styles entirely. And we saw Razor come through with Noah Hotham, who ended up getting injured early on in the first half. So I was kind of a little bit worried about that in terms of Roigard, because he had just come back. You want to make sure that he is ready. He did play for the Bunnings last week, so you could tell that he was ready, he was fit. But whether it was time to be able to come straight into the Rugby Championship is a different ball game, because it's a completely different level of physicality, different speed, different everything. So that obviously everything went out the window when Cam Roy got stepped foot on that pitch, because that guy was just absolutely phenomenal. Breath of fresh air. I love seeing Cam Roy playing, one of the best number 9s in world rugby. I put him on the lines of Antoine Dupont and Gibson Park, who I hold in very, very high regard. So he is up there with, with those. So top 3, it's between them, no doubt in my mind. But ultimately, they put in a very strong performance. I mean, Caleb Clark coming in with a stellar performance, Carter coming in with a stellar performance. I'm still not entirely I'm still not what's the word for it? Content? No, it's not content. I mean, I'm not happy with Proctor at 13. I think Lester Fanganuku would have done such a better job at 13. I don't know. It's just there seems to be this insistence on playing Proctor at 13. He's getting the spots above everybody else. Nobody else is getting that chance at 13. This Barrett and Proctor partnership, it's like they're really, really banking on everything to have this partnership work, and I just don't feel that it's there. I feel Leicester and Geordie would have done such a better partnership. So that's that. Absolutely phenomenal. But I mean, we take a look at Australia, and my word, Fraser McWright, let's just give him a bit of props here. Every single time Fraser McWright is on the field, that guy's getting no less than like 16, 17 tackles. The guy is an absolute tackling machine. Every single game that he's played, he has been phenomenal. The guy's just been everywhere. One of my favorite back rows of the Rugby Championship. He's really showed and done everything that he possibly could. And then the same thing for James O'Connor. I think O'Connor has done a stellar performance as well. The performances that he put through was just ridiculous. I mean, how he was playing was pretty crazy as well. I loved that we got to see a little bit of Salakai Lotto as well, and Taniela Tupou was just an absolute beast, and he's been a beast since he's been playing for Australia. I think that Lions game, that first Lions test would have been a completely different test if they had players like him available and ready. I think it could have been completely different. We've seen the emergence of Corey Toole coming through as well, putting in brilliant performances. The guy, he is rapid beyond all belief. Max Jorgensen really putting in a big show for him, showing why he's one of the best talents in world rugby. I really do rate him along the lines of BLBIA, who in my opinion is the best winger in world rugby right now. Like, in terms of talent, scoring record, the guy's pretty much got everything. He's 21 years old. I think he's 22 now. And yeah, but I put Max Jorgensen up there in that line. I wasn't really impressed with Harry Potter either, and I'm not even talking his bloody spells, but he definitely worked something today. He put in a good performance, bagged him a try as well. But yeah, we've seen a lot of big performances from players like Ikitau and Suali'i, really putting in solid performances. So the Australians are really, really showing that whatever Schmidt is doing is working, and they need to keep doing it, because that fire that Schmidt has managed to get out of them, and that undying just fight, is not something that we've seen in Australia for a couple of years now, and they are finally getting it. So hopefully this does run into the next head coach. I forgot his name now, but they're making so much progress, and it's going to be a shame to see Schmidt leave when he's getting so much out of them. He's really, really getting so much out of them. But yeah, I mean, the stats won't necessarily tell you about the game. The stats will, they don't show just how good the Australians were at moments through the game. And I mean, take a look at the set pieces. 7 scrums, 15 lineouts, 8 restarts received, 100% all round. Australia, 5 scrums, 10 lineouts, 5 restarts received. And the only thing that they don't have that's 100% is their lineouts, which is 90%, which that is still pretty good on its own. We take a look at the attack. When you take into consideration South Africa and Argentina, their post-contact meters were minor comparing to this game. They were minor. This just shows how entertaining this game was, how they were playing with ball to hand, the contact that they were making. The All Blacks had 241 passes, 162 carries, 414 meters post-contact. 440 meters post contact. You could tell that they were just going in for contact. They wanted to make someone hurt, and just going in, getting those phases down. 5 line breaks. I mean, even Australia, 162 passes, 126 carries, 307 meters carried. I mean, these two games pretty much had more post contact meters than almost all of the games over the weekend. It's ridiculous. They played so well. I mean, even looking at their defense, 159 tackles made, 11 tackles missed, 94% tackle completion. The Aussies had 216 tackles made, 40 tackles missed, and this was their big thing, where they just couldn't seem to grab hold of the All Blacks. They would just, and oftentimes it was actually unnecessary mistakes that were made, right? Which ultimately the All Blacks did take advantage of. When we're talking about tackles missed, you should never really be hitting that 40 mark. I mean, we're talking 15 to 20 is pretty high. Never mind 40. And even that, because the amount of tackles that they made, they still had a pretty good tackle completion with 84%. But, the All Blacks had 60 less, but almost, they were almost 4 times less the amount of tackles missed as well. So, yeah, absolutely ridiculous. The All Blacks, I think, looking at the game, I think that they did deserve to win the game. But if Australia had to make the most out of, if Australia were to make the most out of what they had, especially that late that back end game, I think we could have seen a completely different game. And if Harry Potter wasn't to get that yellow card, as we see on the 72nd minute, I think we would have seen a fired up Australia, because as immediately after Potter ends up getting himself a yellow, Cam Roigard comes through with another try. And Cam Roigard really controlled that game. He really controlled that game, right? They really put a lot of emphasis on penalties. So I just feel the Wallabies, if they had to come through with a win, I would have understood it. Unfortunate mistakes were made. I mean, Carla Tazano's try was absolutely brilliant. I mean, literally, they were dominating with that maul, but the All Blacks were just too good. Australia made unnecessary mistakes at the wrong times, and the All Blacks capitalized on it. And Roigard really pulled the strings throughout the entire game. So honestly, I thought this was an absolutely brilliant week. We are seeing South Africa top the charts again of the Rugby Championship, and yeah, can't wait for the next round. So please like, subscribe. It really does help the channel grow, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.